And ladies and gentlemen, we are joined right now by two Olympians, two champions, gold medal winners in the pool, in the swimming area. And we have four-time medalist Cullen Jones, fresh off his three-medal performance, including a gold at the 2012 Olympic Games. And we have Rowdy Gaines, who you are, a lot of you are probably just familiar with him for his work on ESPN, NBC, TNT, and swimming meets and Olympics, etc. But of course, he is a three-time gold medal winner in the 1984 Games. And gentlemen, welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, you guys are doing something very important here, and that is you want to teach kids how to swim because kids drown, and we're entering the summer months, and it's just pool season and swimming season, and you know, there's hardly a greater tragedy than when you hear about these kids climbing into a pool or just being swept away or whatever the situation is. And if I can start with you, Cullen.
Sure.
You had an experience of your own at the age of 5. Talk about that.
Yes, I was about 5 years old, and I was a spoiled little only child. And my parents wanted to bring me to an amusement park, and I was excited, and they had water rides, and my parents decided they wanted to get on one of them, and I was fully supervised. That's what's important about this story. There were lifeguards there, my parents were there, and I still was able to go underwater, flip on the inner tube, and it takes about 20 seconds for a child to drown, and I was underwater for 30.
Wow, and you obviously were rescued.
They resuscitated me, yes.
And how did you ever want to get back in the water?
I was a little nervous to get back in the water, but I had two parents that really were pushing for it. My dad didn't know how to swim, my mom didn't, but she was kind of the driving force about wanting to make sure that I learned how to swim because she herself didn't know how to swim.
And Rowdy, how did you get involved with this Make a Splash, which is what this organization is called, which is trying to educate kids and teach them how to swim?
Well, I worked for USA Swimming many years ago, 2003, and we started the USA Swimming Foundation, and the Make a Splash was sort of driving out of that. What we do is it's a national water safety initiative that we spread the message of water safety throughout the country. Steve, drowning, as you said, it's an epidemic in our country. It's the second leading cause of accidental death in children ages 14 years and younger. And through Make a Splash, through USA Swimming Foundation, our great partner Phillips 66, we're able to spread this message through our some 600 partner programs all across the country.
No, there's, like I said, it's so important because you hate to hear about those things. But what could parents listening right now, aside from getting involved with Make a Splash and attending your events and going to the website, all that, but what could they do? I mean, what do you advise first and foremost that parents with young children 14 and under do with regard to water safety?
I would say the number one thing is to understand that children are naturally drawn to the water. Once it starts getting warm next week, Memorial Day, pools start opening, kids are going to want to be near the pool. But like Rowdy said, this is a life skill. This is something that children need to learn how to do because they're going to get around water once it starts to get warm. So make sure that they know that it's fun, but they need to be smart about how they approach the water. They need to respect it and to be safe around it. Never swim alone, always have fun, but respect the water.
And Steve,
Steve,
let me say one more thing on that. You know, if you go to the website, it's makeasplash.org, a lot of people are concerned about money, the cost of it. Right. I mean, when you think about some of our underprivileged communities, it's a real problem. And 70% of, for example, African Americans don't know how to swim. 60% of Hispanic children don't know how to swim. But if you go to that website, it'll list the 600 programs across the country in every state, and a lot of these programs give low-cost or even free swim lessons to kids. So money should not be an object.
Right.
All right, we're talking to Rowdy Gaines, triple Olympic gold medalist, and Cullen Jones, who just won Olympic gold and 2 other medals in the 2012 Olympics, and I know he's planning to compete in the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio.
Yes.
Let me ask you, Cullen, about being only the second African-American male ever to make the U.S. swim team. You know, there's I don't know, a terrible stereotype about blacks not being able to swim or whatever. Why do you you think there's such a paucity of, or has been such a paucity of blacks on the U.S. Olympic swim team? Is it because they don't try out, or is it because they don't make it? And that always gets me when I hear statistics like here in New York City. Oh, only 3% of the fire force is African American, and that's not right. It's prejudice. And I say, well, how many applied? I mean, you got to tell me how many are applying before you tell me it's prejudice. So, what's the deal with the paucity of African Americans and swimming, at least as regard to the Olympic team?
Well, Steve, I think it's a cultural thing. I've had people in my own family growing up. They're like, "You're still doing that swimming thing," and they just. I know the African Americans in the U.S. It's kind of been beaten into our heads that this is something that we don't do, but there's an answer to that. We didn't play golf. We didn't play tennis, but we do now. Once I feel like someone is a trailblazer, you see more and more people kind of being able to stand behind that. And I think that there have been people before me. I think right now I have the torch. There are people that I will be handing that to. And I think you'll see a lot more African Americans on the Olympic team, just because this is ground that many people haven't stepped on. This is something that is new. This is something that is different. And for some it scares, and for many, I think there are people that are going that route. And I'm happy to be a part of a small group of people, but a group of people that will be going after that Olympic gold in swimming.
No, and Rowdy, I'd like to just mention you. I am. This is basically a political show, though my background is sports, and we do sports from time to time. And of course, the 1980 Olympic Games, which you had planned to participate in, the boycott affected you at the peak of your career. We did not go to those Olympics, but you did shine, of course, in '84, the LA Games 4 years later. There is no real separation, a way to separate politics and sports, especially when it comes to the Olympics, as we've seen, I guess, throughout the Olympic history, correct?
I wish there was, Steve. I sure wish there was, but there isn't, unfortunately. And if you go back to 1980, the problem I had with it was it was such an utter failure. The people that didn't have the foresight to see that, A, the boycott wasn't going to work because the Russians were still going to have an Olympic Games, and B, it was still going to be held in Moscow. They should have seen that going down the pipe. And that affected a lot of athletes. As you said, I came out smelling like the rose because I had 1984, but there were 300 and something athletes of that 80 team that didn't swim in 76 and didn't swim in 84, didn't compete in all sports. And those are the ones that I really feel for.
Yeah, and of course, let me ask you one question also about the Olympics here. The refusal of the Olympic Committee to honor or recognize the slaughter of the Israeli athletes in '72. The families have requested it. Others have requested it to have some kind of memorial. Actually, the 40th anniversary just passed, and they again refused to do it. You feel that should be acknowledged at a Games?
Well, once again, it becomes political when you do that, Steve. I mean, I want the Olympic Games to be about the competition, and yes, there's definitely needs to be something to honor that, because that was a huge tragedy. Whether or not that happens at an Olympic Games, I don't know, but it needs to happen. And I understand the feelings of that. I was 13 years old in 1972. I remember that Olympics inspired me to swim. Mark Spitz was a big swimmer in that Olympic Games. So
we're the same age. Yeah, we're the same age.
Yep. I was 13. I was in '72. That was one of the big things that inspired me. So, and it was also a huge tragedy and something that I'll never forget. And hopefully the world will never forget.
All right, listen, gentlemen, Rowdy Gaines, Cullen Jones, makeasplash.org. Everybody, to keep your kids safe from swimming. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Thanks. You.
All right, folks. Very good cause and very important. You don't want accidents to happen when they don't have to happen, and kids, like Rowdy said, are drawn to water